Report on interrogation of sole survivor from U-335, a 500-ton U-boat sunk at 2133 on 3rd August 1942. Section 1. Introductory Remarks. The sole survivor from U-335, Matrosengefreiter Ordinary Seaman Rudolf Janke, was landed in the United Kingdom on 11th August 1942 and arrived at the interrogation center the following day. His U-boat was sunk by His Majesty's submarine P-247 in position 62 degrees 48 north, 0 degrees 12 west on 3rd August 1942. Section 2. Complement of U-335. U-335 was commanded by Lieutenant Commander Hans Pelkner of the 1934 term. In 1937, he had served in the gunnery training ship Bruma, and in 1938, he was in the 4th Naval Gunnery Division. Early in the war, he was in minesweepers in Norway, where he was said to have been attacked on several occasions by aircraft. He had done his early training in the old battleship Schlesien. He was said to have been a cheerful man with a great sense of humor. Apart from the captain, the officers were all described as inexperienced. The first lieutenant was Lieutenant Zersi, or Sub-Lieutenant Koopman, of the October 1938 term. The second lieutenant, Lieutenant Zersi Eckenberg, about whom nothing is known, and the engineer officer, Oberleutnant Engineer, or Lieutenant Engineer, Brommel, of the October 1938 term, who was aged 28. The total complement of U-335 was 42. The sole survivor, Matrosengefreiter Rudolf Janke, was born at Freistadt in West Prussia in 11th November 1942. His father is a peasant farmer. He was a member of the Hitler Youth movement from 1934 to 1940 and entered the Navy on 1st January 1941, reporting to Oldenburg, where he did 8 weeks field training. He continued this training at Braca for a further 8 weeks. In May, he went to the training depot at Norden, where he remained for 2 months. Although he had volunteered for torpedo boats or destroyers, he was drafted to U-boats, and in July was sent to the U-boat school at Gdynia, where he was in the 4th Company under Lieutenant Stein. While at Gdynia, he did a period of 14 days at sea in U-18, a 250-ton school boat commanded by Oberleutnant Zersi von Rosenberg. He spent about 2 months at Gdynia. At the end of August or at the beginning of September 1941, he went for about 1 week to the drafting depot at Neustadt, where he was under the command of Corvette Captain, junior commander, Reger. When on watch in U-335, Janke was either a lookout or did tricks at the wheel and hydroplanes. Section 3. Early History of U-335. U-335 was built at the Nordseewerke, Emden, being a 500-ton Type 7C boat of the series U-331 to U-337. Some of the ship's company, including Janke, were drafted to her in September and October 1941, whilst she was still building. She was launched at Emden in mid-October 1941, and the first and second lieutenants were appointed at the beginning of December, and she sailed for the U-Boat Acceptance Command, UAK, at Kiel in the middle of that month. She had completed her routine engine and diving trials at Kiel and had passed out of the hands of the UAK before being iced in during February and March in company with 10 other boats. Until she left Kiel, she had a white square with 2 vertical lines painted on her conning tower, the square being the mark of the Nordseewerke, the 2 lines denoting a 500-ton boat. In April 1942, soon after the ice had melted, U-335 left Kiel for Gdynia, where she carried out torpedo firing trials. She only stayed here a very short time and went on to work at Danzig, where she remained some 8 weeks. Once, when coming alongside here, a spring was caught in her screws. Bad seamanship had been responsible for the same thing once previously in Kiel. Whilst working up, U-335 once spent 10 days at sea in the Baltic, calling at Gdynia en route for Danzig. She carried out exercises with some 250-ton school U-boats, making dummy attacks on convoys. This is known as the Kommandantenschießen, torpedo firing by the commanding officer, as opposed to the torpedo trials at Gdynia referred to above. She also carried out dummy attacks on the Tirpitz to test the latter's S-Gerät, search gear. 2 days were spent in Hella, whilst U-335 was based on Danzig. In mid-June, she returned to Kiel and docked for 5 or 6 weeks at the Holwald yards. Section 4. First and last patrol of U-335. U-335 sailed from Kiel at 0700 on Thursday, 30th July, 1942, in company with an unspecified 750-ton boat. Before sailing, 7 members of the ship's company had been issued with tropical kit with the ostensible purpose of misleading them as to their destination. In fact, U-335 was bound at the end of her patrol for a port on the French Atlantic coast, probably Lorient, which she was expected to reach about the end of August or early in September. She is now thought to have passed through the Great Belt to the Kattegat, and not to have called at any Norwegian port. During daylight on 1st August, she was in sight of the Norwegian coast until 2100, when she altered course away from the land across the North Sea. Janka states that from Kiel to the Norwegian coast she made good about 10 knots on both diesels, and that after altering away from the coast she changed over to diesel electric and made some 6 or 7 knots against a head sea. She dived only once, for exercise shortly after leaving Kiel. At about 2100 on 3rd August, Pelkna was on bridge and warned the lookouts to keep a good watch for British aircraft, which were liable to appear very suddenly. However, no aircraft or ships were sighted. Section 5. Sinking of U-335. U-335 had been on the surface for about 6 hours, when at 21:28 BST, His Majesty's submarine P-247 sighted her fine on the starboard bow at 3,000 yards range. U-335 was then making 7 knots, 310 degrees, in position 62 degrees 48 north, 0 degrees 12 west. Janka was one of the lookouts at the time, his sector being right astern to red 80. Some 5 or 6 others were also on the bridge. Having sighted the U-boat P-247, who was throughout at periscope depth, altered course from 30 degrees to 15 degrees, and at 21:31½ fired 6 Mark 8 torpedoes from tubes 1 to 6. It was possible to fire so soon after sighting, as all tubes had been kept flooded and firing reservoirs charged throughout the patrol. The torpedoes were fired at 7-second intervals. the range of the target then being 2,500 yards. At 21:33½, a torpedo struck U-335 abaft the conning tower, and she vanished. At 21:37, P-247 surfaced and sighted a large area of oil, fuel, and wreckage. 2 survivors were seen in the water, but one refused to be rescued and was drowned. Janke himself was taken on board at 21:50, suffering badly from shock and a surfeit of fuel oil, but recovered quickly from both. 2 attempts were made to interrogate him, but without result. He remained on board until P-247 returned to harbor on 11th August. He was accommodated in the ERA's mess, where he behaved well and proved quite friendly and talkative, but let slip no information. When taken on the bridge for fresh air at Lerwick, he said that his U-boat was larger than P-247. NID note: Janke had been on watch for some time when his boat was sunk, and is quite certain that she had been on the surface all the time. P-247's report states that U-335 was surfacing 5 bow up when sighted. The head sea may have lifted her bow and given the illusion that she was surfacing. Section 6. Details of U-335. Badge. Her badge was a white Maltese cross on a black shield. This was painted on her conning tower after she left the UAK at Kiel. Color of U-335. U-335 was painted a dark blue-gray. Silent approach speed. Her silent approach speed with motors on the surface was 1.5 knots. S-gear. No S-gear or anti-ASDIC was carried, according to the prisoner's statements. Torpedoes. She carried 14 torpedoes, but never fired any. Depth gauge markings. Her depth gauge was marked in graduations of 5 meters. Janke would not admit that she had ever dived deeper than 84 meters, 275 feet. Periscope depth. Her periscope depth varied from 13.7 to 14.4 meters, 45 to 47 feet. Maximum speed. U-335's maximum speed on diesels was 18 knots. Section 7. Other U-boats. Most of the information in this chapter derives from prisoners other than Janke. They are considered reliable. U-14. A prisoner said that from December 1940 to April 1941 he did his training in U-14, then under the command of Oberleutnant zur See Wellner. Wellner was subsequently appointed to command a 500-ton keel-built boat, which was said to be the first of a modified Type 7C, and to be fitted with 6 vertical mine shafts in pairs abaft her conning tower, each probably containing 3 mines. The engineer officer of U-14 at the time of the prisoner's training was said to have been appointed on March 1941 to U-475. U-18. Janke did his training at Gdynia in U-18, a 250-tonner commanded by Oberleutnant von Rosenberg. U-103. When Kapitänleutnant Victor Schutz was in command, U-103's badge was said to have been a bow and arrow. U-123. The badge of U-123, commanded by Captain Lieutenant Reinhard Hardigan, is said to be a four-leafed clover. U-336 and U-337. Janke said that U-336 and U-337, both 500-ton boats Type 7C built at the Nordseewerke Emden, were commissioned soon after U-335. U-336 arrived in Kiel early in January 1942. An ID note. It had hitherto been believed that the series ended with U-336. The existence of U-337 is accepted. U-403. A prisoner saw U-403 in Kiel in September 1941, when she had just been taken over by her captain. She is known to be commanded by Oberleutnant zur See Karl Clausen. U-502. A prisoner said he had seen U-502 in Kiel in June 1941. This boat is known to be commanded by Captain Lieutenant Jürgen von Rosensteil. U-575. Another prisoner from U-574 said that the first lieutenant of U-575 is Lieutenant zur See Schmoling of the 1937 term. This boat is known to carry a spider as his badge, and a subscription was taken in a town in South Germany which had adopted the boat so that each member of the ship's company could have a spider on the ring for securing his silk. They also wore a spider on their caps. This boat had 3 coxswains. The first was drafted to a 100-ton U-boat following a disagreement with his captain over supplies, and the second was dismissed his ship for overstaying his leave in Kiel. U-576. The crew of U-576 wear a skull and crossbones on rings for securing their silks. This boat, which carries the same badge on her conning tower, is commanded by Oberleutnant zur See Ernst Gunther Heinecke. H.M.S. Seal. Janke saw Seal in Neustadt in September 1941. She was not in commission. There is some doubt as to the name or number by which she is known in Germany. Section 8. Bases. France. Lorient. A prisoner has said that when he was in Lorient in December 1941, all staff cars were marked with a torpedo with Mr. Churchill sitting astride it, smoking a cigar. Germany. Emden. Janke said that the Nordseewerke had been very badly damaged by air raids before U-335 was launched in October 1941. Both the machine shops and the slips had been hit. He confirmed the information given by prisoners from other U-boats that this yard was completely destroyed in an air raid in July 1942, and that no more boats can be built there. He says that Emden is very popular with U-boat men, however, who much prefer it to Kiel. Poland. Gdynia. Janke said that while he was training at the U-boat school at Gdynia in July 1941, the commanding officer was Corvette Captain Werner Hartmann. He said that Corvette Captain Wilhelm Rollmann was also there, but that he did not think that he had a U-boat. An ID note, Rollmann is believed to command the 22nd Flotilla at Gdynia. Those under training were divided into 9 companies. Janke was in the 4th under Captain Lieutenant Stein. Only ratings attending the U-boat school at Gdynia are accommodated in the depot ship Wilhelm Gustaf. Section 9. Other ships. Lutzow. Janke said that the pocket battleship Lutzow is fitted with multiple stern torpedo tubes. Tirpitz. A survivor from U-93 said that Rear Admiral Wurmbach took command of the battleship Tirpitz while he was still a Capitaine zur See, captain. He was promoted Rear Admiral to give him seniority over the ship's gunnery officer, who also held this rank. NID note: from announcements in the German press of 2nd September 1940, it is known that Wurmbach was promoted Rear Admiral with effect from 1st September 1940. It is believed that he relinquished this command sometime prior to November 1941. Gneisenau. Janka is certain that Gneisenau was hit by a bomb in one of her magazines during March 1942 in Kiel. Appendix: list of crew of U-335. Survivor Rudolf Janka, Matrosengefreiter, ordinary seaman first class, born 11/11/22. Total 1. Casualties, etc. Officers 4, chief and petty officers 13, men 24, total 41. Total crew, officers 4, chief and petty officers 13, men 25, total 42.